is James Mathers at Expo 2018. I'm here with my old friend Michael Cioni. Michael's the founder of Light Iron, and now he's associated with Panavision as the Director of Innovation, I think is the title. That's a great title. You're somebody that I would almost call a futurist. I saw the Blade Runner, the original Blade Runner, the other night, and it reminded me, that's set in 2019. And they had flying cars and a lot of things that I don't think we're going to see next year, I
don't think so.
And they had somebody with the title of futurist on there. And but I think you're a better futurist because you're always telling me things that are going to happen next year and the year after. So tell us some of the things that you see in the future. What are the trends that interest you right now?
Well, you didn't see the Panacar, the flying car? How did you miss that? No, not yet. We don't have that yet. I think one of the things that I really like is a term that I kind of call it the Netflix effect, right? And the Netflix effect is, if you just look at Netflix specifically, you see, okay, here are their trends, here's their pushing. They're talking about hi-fi. They do everything broadband. Their theatrical process is a little different than everybody else's for theatrical and so on. What is the Netflix effect is not what Netflix does to be successful. I think their valuation now is higher than Disney's as of last week, so it's like they're a monster, right? I think the Netflix effect is how it changes other behaviors. So if you look at cable stations like FX or AMC or even Discovery, they're changing some of their motives. History Channel, Nat Geo, and I think that's Netflix affected.
Sure, they're just raising the bar all the way.
Yeah, and so
line.
I think sometimes people say, yeah, but Netflix is kind of a bully because they have these rules and they change all these things. And I say they are kind of a bully. Big companies are bullies, but if you're going to be bullied, don't you want to be bullied up? So I kind of like that they're elevating everybody, and I can see a difference in a whole bunch of networks. Last year we did a show with Discovery called Manhunt, and it was about the Unabomber, and it was Discovery's first wall-to-wall narrative shot on Vericam, and it was a really beautiful drama miniseries that had no interviews, no documentary, but it fit in the Discovery portfolio. That's the Netflix effect, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's good because now the cinematographer and director that did that, they never worked for Discovery Channel before, but they got a real budget. And Paul Bettany's in the show, and it's an awesome show. I'll probably see some Emmys this year. That's the type of thing that I think leaders like Netflix shouldn't necessarily be looked at as bullies exclusively, but they should also be looked at as leaders and how they impact other groups to elevate up.
Yep. There's a big trend that I'm seeing now for large sensors, and of course Panavision is leading the charge there. But it's not right for everybody, Some people need more depth of field than others, and but it's another choice. Tell me your thoughts on large sensors.
Yeah, I have the fortunate job of being the product director of the DXL and working very closely with Jared Land and his team on the engineering side of the RED sensor program. RED is the fastest growing sensor program. They have the most speed. So even if you say, I don't like this sensor or that sensor, it's like, well, you don't have to wait long for RED to come out with a new one. So it comes quick. But what I like about large format is that it is just a new choice. It opens something up. What we understand is that large format isn't for everybody, and it's not actually for every project. Sometimes it doesn't necessarily help your project. But what is really good about large format is you can always tune it down. You can always stop down. You can always window in if you had to. You can always adjust your focal lengths in order to kind of make it behave like 35, but you can't always, when you're in 35, when there's a wall, you can only back up so far, right? When there is a dark light, there's only so fast a lens can be in 35. Large format breaks down, I'm not talking about resolution here, we're talking about the optical benefits of large format is faster lenses, it is wider apertures, and it is less distortion because a wider aperture in a closer proximity has less distortion on VistaVision than it would on 35 or 16, which has a lot of distortion. So this is where some of these geometric properties come into play, and they're fun. And if someone's like not sure about should I go to large format, is it difference or not, what I usually ask them is, well, do you own a still camera? And they say yes. And then I say, well, what still camera do they use? And they generally own a larger format still camera And I said, well, you wouldn't shoot this on a 19 millimeter still camera. You know what that looks like, and you know your pictures probably aren't as good. And they're like, yeah, that's true. Well, the same properties happen in video. So I think large format photography helps drive the interest of large format cinematography.
Yeah. Now, another benefit that's touted is reframing,
Yeah.
and you know, I can understand that to fix a problem, but as a cinematographer, that scares the hell out of me that somebody's going to be reframing all of my photography
It's a great
at
point.
a later date.
It's a great point. And the one thing I don't want people to like harp on one thing, because if there's 9 good things about something and there's one bad thing, and it doesn't necessarily mean throw the 9 good out,
Well, it could
right?
be a good thing and a bad thing.
It could be good and bad, yeah.
And there's stabilization.
That's
you know.
right. Yeah, exactly. Good ideas in the hands of good people are good.
Yeah.
Good ideas in the hands of bad people are bad, right? So what Ian Verdevec, the colorist at Light Iron, said once that I really liked is he says, editors will always choose performance over camera, right? So if you do a bunch of takes and the one that has the best performance has a bump or a problem or whatever the case is photographically, the editor won't care. They won't see that because performance wins in that battle, right?
Yeah.
It's not even 50-50. And when you think about it in that perspective, then it means that the reframing doesn't, if you're truly collaborative with your director and your editor, a cinematographer doesn't have to be necessarily concerned that they're going to change everything. It's just this actually helps improve when performance is better than camera for whatever reason.
Good point.
And so sometimes performance is weak and the camera's better, and the reframing can help you there because the reframing can allow you to stitch takes together to fix performance. And so it's the other way as well.
But I think there's going to be a lot more soft focus.
Yeah, there might be. There might be. That could be the case. But thankfully, we have a lot of people. C-Motion's one of the guys that are really doing a good job of pioneering really advanced
Focus assist.
Focus assist.
Yeah.
And so if you say the depth of field is going to get harder to use, that's an opportunity for entrepreneurs to say, well, let's fix that problem and make it better. And that's a great thing, and why Cine Gear is relevant, because as the ball moves creatively, then technologically it needs to move as well. And that's what I think so many companies are doing well.
Is that something that you see working into Panavision cameras, auto focus assist?
Yeah, you know, we looked at it for a while and did some prototypes, and then we ended up looking at kind of what the other guys were doing. And for us, it's going to be more of integrating other systems into ours because there's different flavors.
Yeah.
And no one flavor is perfect, no one flavor is ideal. And different regions tend to gravitate towards different companies based on where they geographically live. So we're more in the, we can support everybody for that particular process. We think that's one that could be unique to the user as opposed to making a Panavision exclusive one. We're not going to probably do that.
Any, without giving away any trade secrets, can you tell me some other things that might be on your wish list?
On my wish list, that's a good question. You know, the next big thing that we're sort of starting to really dig into is artificial intelligence and how neural networking can work for us, and how robotics and predictive concepts can start to help interpret things and actually elevate the process further. Now, there are different ways to interpret what AI is, because on one hand, people understand, okay, a self-driving car, a robot security guard, a Facebook filters on people's faces and face recognition, stuff like that. Okay, there's that category. What we're trying to look at is and what I'm really interested in is the creative side of things. How do you improve a creative process, and really how do you speed up the creative process so that there's a more of a closed system? Because if, for example, this is maybe a silly analogy, but let's just say when you're shooting film, I know what you guys are going to think, but just hear me out. Let's just say if you're shooting film, it takes 10 steps from point A to point Z, okay? Let's just make that up, 10 steps. If you shoot digital, maybe it's possible you could do it in 7 steps. There's a few steps you don't need in film. It's just an analogy, right? Well, with AI, could we take those 7 steps and make it 6? Could we make it 5? Could we make it 4? And so when you think about how film works, because it's analog, everything analog or is physical is limited, right? 35 millimeter can never be smaller than 35. A 400-foot magazine can never be less than 400 feet.
It's linear.
It's linear, right. Well, when we get to digital, we start to make things nonlinear and we start to shrink things in some ways, a hard drive is smaller, data rates are more efficient, compression is healthy when it's done right. But how do we automate things that humans do that they don't need to? And a good example would be, how do we interpret first cuts? For example, if a camera is aware of the lens, what lens it's shooting, which it is, and it's aware of what take it is, which it is, camera aware, lens metadata, cook/I, take, sound, they tell us the take, the script, what scene we're in, who's in it, script supervisor, script E, gentleman makes that, does a great job with script E. So now we got these 3 data points. We have time code, ACN, ambient, and all of a sudden we look at all those. If we were to synthesize all those together, well, the ability to identify what's a wide shot, it can figure that out, what's a medium, what's a close, who's talking when, having the computer basically analyze all that, it can give you a rough cut assembly based just purely on your cuts. Now, this isn't trying to remove the process of editing. That's not what I'm saying.
Editing assist.
It could be an editing assist, or imagine if when you're watching dailies, which is so time consuming, you don't have to go through waiting for slates and tails and watching the same take A, B, and C camera. You could say, just show me a cut of this and just give me a sense. And that takes 10 minutes of watching and makes it 2 minutes of watching. That's where artificial intelligence starts to become a creative enhancer and not necessarily a job replacer.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah.
You always come up with such great ideas.
I don't know what I'm talking about.
Love to interview you. I appreciate you making the time to stop by.
Awesome, Jim. You guys are great. I always appreciate it.
you.
Thank you so much.